I've always been a skeptic, especially toward the pretentious underbelly of the classical music world. As a 28-year-old critic for a mid-tier arts magazine, my days blurred into dissections of overrated symphonies and hyped prodigies, all while nursing a cynicism forged from too many hollow performances. I'd heard the whispers about the Orchestra of the Veiled for years, an inclusive ensemble absent from public stages for decades, cloaked in layers of mystery and myth. Rumors slithered like shadows through the dimly lit bars where critics congregated, an ancient curse woven into their music, performances that twisted audiences into something unrecognizable, or worse, erased them entirely. Some claimed the melodies unraveled the mind, driving listeners to madness or self-annihilation. Others spoke of spectral attendees who dissolved into mist. It was all tabloid drivel, the sort of lurid myth that lured the gullible and sparked fevered conspiracy theories. I dismissed it as shrewd marketing or the ravings of fanatic devotees. But when an anonymous invitation slid under my apartment door one rain-lashed evening, promising a secret concert in an abandoned opera house on the city's fringes, curiosity overpowered my doubt. I didn't buy the curse for a moment, but a scoop like this could launch my career from tepid reviews to headline glory. Hell, it might even free me from that suffocating office and grant me a shred of respect. The invitation was a relic of elegance and enigma, thick cardstock embossed with gold filigree, twisting into interlocking notes and thorny vines that seemed to writhe under my gaze. No date, no time, just an address and a single taunting line. Witness the unveiling, if you dare. I stared at it for hours, my skepticism clashing with an inexplicable tug, as if invisible strings pulled at my resolve. My cluttered one-bedroom in a decaying downtown building felt oppressively small that night, walls pressing in like a coffin as rain drummed against the grimy panes. I'd been mired in a rut, reviews that scarcely covered rent, a trail of fractured relationships, a gnawing sense that my life stagnated like the very scene I critiqued. This could be my escape, I told myself, or at least a tale to mock over drinks. The next evening, beneath a sky bruised with storm clouds, I drove to the city's forsaken edges, where rusting warehouses yielded to relics of faded grandeur. The opera house loomed like a specter amid the decay, its once majestic facade now fractured and strangled by ivy. Gargoyles leered from the arched entrance, their stone grimaces eroded into eternal sneers. I parked in the gloom, my pulse quickening not from fear, but from the illicit thrill. Slipping past the shadowed sentinels was simpler than anticipated. A forged press pass, hastily crafted on my laptop, and a fistful of cash sufficed. They were hulking shapes in dark suits, faces hidden beneath low-brimmed hats, and they scarcely glanced at my papers before gesturing me inside. As I crossed the threshold, a chill burrowed into my bones, deeper than the autumn bite. The foyer was a mausoleum of lost splendor, marble floors veined with cracks, chandeliers shrouded in cobwebs that stirred in an unseen draught, whispering secrets to the dust. The grand hall was a decaying shrine, its velvet seats occupied by an odd assembly, opulent eccentrics in tailored finery and glittering gems, wild-eyed artists with tousled hair and paint-flecked hands, and a few familiar faces from society's shadowed margins. There was Margot Voss, the elusive heiress infamous for her macabre collections, murmuring to a companion whose eyes flicked with nervous dread. Nearby huddled young bohemians, their expressions aglow with forbidden fervor. The air hung heavy with anticipation, laced with a faint metallic tang, like aged blood or corroded iron. Dust motes swirled in the feeble chandelier glow, casting elongated shadows that writhed across the walls like living veins. The stage stood stark, save for the orchestra's arrangement. Chairs in meticulous semicircles, stands cradling sheets of parchment yellow music. I claimed a seat in the middle rows, notebook poised, prepared to dismantle whatever charade unfolded. The orchestra emerged without ceremony, emaciated figures in frayed tuxedos, their skin pallid and stretched, as if sunlight were a forgotten myth. Their instruments gleamed with an unnatural luster under the spotlights, violins whose wood throbbed with veiled vitality, cellos strung with filaments like glistening spider silk. At the podium loomed the conductor, a skeletal apparition with eyes like abyssal voids, his flesh taut over jagged bones. He brandished a baton seemingly hewn from bone, etched with indecipherable runes that pulsed faintly in the light. He lifted it with deliberate slowness, and the hall plunged into a silence so absolute it felt like the structure itself exhaled a held breath. The performance ignited with a solitary, resonant note from the cellos, reverberating through the halls. It wasn't mere sound. It was a throb, aligning unnervingly with my heartbeat. I felt it echo in my chest, thump, thump, mirroring the string's cadence. A shiver traced my spine, which I blamed on the hall's ancient acoustics. The symphony unfurled in dissonant waves, notes coiling like tendrils around my thoughts. It was mesmerizing, dragging me beneath a shroud where harmony and chaos bled into me. Peace defied all I'd known. Not Beethoven's majesty or Stravinsky's frenzy, but something primordial, dredged from the earth's buried heart. Echoes of the curse, legends slithered into my mind. Music that feasted on souls, scores exacting payment in blood. I brushed them aside, scribbling notes. Innovative, certainly. A revolutionary fusion of atonality and pulse that could reshape contemporary classical. Cursed? Absurd. Mere theatrics. Yet, as the piece deepened, unease seeped into me like ink through parchment. The music infiltrated my skin, warming my veins with an insidious heat. I glanced at my neighbors. Voss leaned forward, eyes glazed in eerie bliss. A young artist beside me panted, fingers twitching to the viola's cadence. The air thickened, the metallic scent sharpening to a coppery bite. My skepticism fissured, a subtle crack, as unbidden memories surfaced. Childhood nights haunted by my father's vinyl records, how music could exalt or eviscerate. He'd been a broken violinist, consumed by his failures, and I'd vowed to shun such vulnerabilities. But here, in this rotting sanctum, the veils between worlds thinned, and dread whispered closer. The composition mounted, tension coiling like a gathering tempest. The tempo surged, violin shrieking in manic flurries, drums thundering like doom across shadowed peaks. The sound saturated every crevice, battering my eardrums, resonating in my marrow. I looked around. The audience swayed in unison, bodies marionetted by unseen strings. A woman in the front row, resplendent in crimson silk, gripped her chest, her features twisted in rapture or torment I couldn't discern. Her lips parted in a voiceless gasp, eyes rolling to whites. The music crested, horns wailing mournfully, as if summoned from the opera house's forsaken crypts. Then it struck. The symphony peaked in a cataclysmic wall of sound, rattling chandeliers and sending crystals cascading like fractured screams. The woman convulsed, her body spasmed to the rhythm, once, twice, and erupted. It was raw, inconceivable, an internal rupture, blood and viscera erupting in an arc synchronized to the orchestral surge. Her chest tore asunder, ribs snapping like brittle branches, fragments of flesh splattering seats, floor, and faces. The spray struck the man beside her. He recoiled in revulsion, only to stiffen and seize. Screams pierced the air, yet the music pressed on, unyielding, as if the carnage were mere accompaniment. The orchestra persisted, faces impassive, blind to the horror. Another victim, 2 rows back, burst like rotten fruit, ribs cracking over the horn's lament. His heart bared briefly before dissolving in a crimson mist. Panic ignited like a plague, the crowd surging, but the doors were sealed, chained from without, mocking the desperate fists. I leapt from my seat, heart hammering in lockstep with the merciless beat, as more bodies detonated. A young couple, entwined in terror, exploded in tandem, their blood mingling in a grotesque duet, painting the aisle scarlet. The woman's cry truncated as her torso cleaved, her lover's arms clutching ruins even as his own form sundered. The hall devolved into an abattoir fresco, limbs jerking to the melody, shrieks weaving with strings, the atmosphere choked with death's copper reek and the sour tang of terror sweat. I staggered through the aisles, evading geysers of blood that arched like infernal fireworks. Something warm and viscous struck my cheek. A shred of lung, perhaps, and I smeared it away with a quaking hand. My mind whirled, reassembling the legends I'd scorned. This wasn't chaos. Each eruption was orchestrated, timed to the music's swells, as if the symphony wielded death's baton. The survivors, a scant dozen, clawed at exits or huddled in corners, faces etched with primal horror. A burly man in velvet battered a side door with a splintered chair leg, but it resisted. A woman at his side knelt, hands over ears, then convulsed and burst, drenching him in her essence. He howled, a guttural keen, before the rhythm devoured him, too. The music's hold tightened, my pulse enthralled by its cadence. Each bass thrum jolted my core, invisible filaments tugging at my innards. I resisted, steadying my breath. But the discord burrowed deeper, exhuming buried fears. Was this the torment my father endured when his beloved music twisted into poison? He'd slit his wrists, leaving me to discover the crimson bathroom, the turntable still murmuring a dirge. No, I thought, burying the vision. This was tangible, not echo. Nearing the stage, I glimpsed the baton's truth. Not bone, but an artifact throbbing with eldritch light. Tendrils of shadow linking it to the players. Their eyes were empty voids, instruments animated by rote, fingers dancing with mechanical grace amid blood-flecked scores. In a surge of revelation amid the bedlam, the legends clarified. A relic from a cursed Eastern European crypt, unearthed by a deranged composer ages past. It consumed life force to sustain its tune, ensnaring performers and listeners in sacrificial rite. The orchestra wasn't cursed. They were vessels, their souls hollowed, channeling the entity's famine through the crowd. Primal survival propelled me as the symphony hurtled into its finale, notes whirling into a maelstrom that shook the walls. Bodies ruptured relentlessly. A young man sprayed the balcony in red. An elder crumpled, entrails spilling like forsaken rags. The metallic odor blended with bile and excrement, churning my gut. I vaulted onto the stage, skidding in blood, shoes squelching on slick wood. A violinist pivoted, his face a rictus of vacant torment, saliva threading from his lips as he played. I shoved him aside, his violin clattering, strings snapping in discord. A flautist with cavernous cheeks lunged, but I elbowed her down, her brittle frame folding like a discarded puppet. The conductor spun, baton brandished like a blade, his abyssal eyes piercing mine. In them, I glimpsed not cruelty, but an ancient, famished weariness, as if he too were captive. The artifact flared, shadowy filaments reaching for me, grazing my skin with glacial claws that stuttered my heart. Time dilated, the music tolling like a requiem. I seized a music stand, its metal weight, and swung. It shattered the baton in a blaze of unnatural radiance, unleashing a dissonant surge that warped the air, chandeliers thrashing wildly. Apocalypse ensued. The orchestra ruptured first, cellists exploding in chorus, strings fraying as blood drowned their bows, wood gleaming slick. Violins wailed their demise as players burst, bone shards studding the stage. The flautist I'd felled atomized in gore, her instrument imploding. The conductor detonated last, a geyser of shadow and viscera, dark essence evaporating like embers smoke. The wave propagated, the remnants of the audience convulsing, erupting in synchronized bursts. Voss, her gems encrusted with her own ruin, young artists' aspirations ending in sodden bursts, final stragglers at the doors, cries silenced in crimson blooms. The hall quaked, viscera cascading like infernal hail, the floor a mire of human remnants. I huddled behind the podium, fetal as the last wails distorted into a solitary, soul-lacerating shriek. Then silence, dark and complete. I crawled from the ruin, bloodied and fractured, the lone remnant. My clothes clung, sodden with strangers' leavings, hands numb from the artifact's lingering frost. The opera house was a charnel vault, mangled forms strewn in macabre tableau, the air fetid with slaughter's pall. Sirens keened distantly as I stumbled into the night, chill air a jolt to my fevered flesh. The edifice hulked behind like a sepulchre, gargoyles smirking in sated glee. I slumped against my car, retching into the weeds, bile mingling with phantom copper on my tongue. But the symphony lingered. It pulses in my veins still, a spectral rhythm aligning with my heartbeat in hushed interludes. Weeks have dragged by. I've sought normalcy, therapy where I fabricate nightmares, articles I cannot summon. Officials deemed it a gas leak, a calamity in a forsaken ruin. But I know the horror's truth. I'm riven, forever. Was it a grotesque opus, a horror of transcendent artistry no mortal could conceive, defying death itself? Or an obscenity from incomprehensible eons, a malediction I've unwittingly loosed upon the world? Regardless, it haunts me, notes swelling in my skull during endless nights, beckoning toward the inexorable. And now, in my apartment, the invitation's filigree glints in the lamplight like a siren's lure. The rhythm stirs anew, not as echo, but within my chest, a crescendo brewing from the depths. My heart falters, then races, attuned to an unseen baton. The curse didn't shatter. It migrated, craving a fresh vessel. I grip my notebook, inscribing these final words as spasms seize me, aware this is the encore it exacts. The music surges, and I rupture, my essence nourishing the timeless symphony, bequeathing only silence to those who might pursue. As the final note dissolves into the void, I sense myself unraveling, strands of soul drawn into its ravenous maw. Yet, in that dissolution, revelation unfurls like a nocturnal bloom. The symphony doesn't conclude with me. It transforms. My form slumps, notebook tumbling from slack fingers, pages fanning to murmur their venomous tune to the next hapless reader. The invitation flutters on my desk in a breeze from nowhere, its golden edges shimmering with the vow of reprise. Days later, they discover me, or the husk, drained of essence, eyes frozen in perpetual ecstasy. Officials will label it cardiac failure, another solitary woe. But in this ethereal residue, I know otherwise. The music endures, propagated not merely to me, but through me, the contagion of ink and recollection. If you're listening to this, heed the whisper. Do you feel it now? The subtle cadence in your chest, mounting to climax. The symphony anoints its next maestro, and the performance, it never truly ceases.